So I mentioned this on our TikTok that we'd be covering this, and there's a lot to be said about this situation.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
Pause it real quick. To give this context, this is a shots fired call at a Burlington coat factory. So I made a comment, and I'd be curious to get Michael's perspective on this also, but like our SOPs and our GOs surrounding active shooters was very different than any other call. Like there was no like staging, there was no nothing. Our training was you go, and it doesn't matter how many cops' bodies got to get stacked to go stop this guy. You go. You don't wait. Now, if there's like reasonable, like if there's like a guy like down the street that you're waiting on that like ups your chances of stopping the threat sooner, sure.
So that's my thing
or
with
you
this.
Can get more equipment, yeah.
Because it came in, they were saying like he was breaking things, and it sounded like gunfire. So they got the active shooter calls. But then it says that the store employees told the officers that he had a bike lock. So it's like,
yeah, it's weird, yeah.
The store employees were the first ones to call. And while the store employees were talking to 911 saying, hey, there's a guy with a bike lock breaking stuff, someone else called in and said, hey, I hear gunshots, there's a guy with a gun. And then a third person called who was not at Burlington, her mom was, who said that there was a guy going crazy in the store. Didn't know.
Okay.
So it's real
convoluted, but
terrible information, but that's normal. Yeah. I mean, that's normal.
That's police work, yeah. So we'll keep playing it, but the one thing that makes me mad about the situation for this officer is these are all the hoops he's got to jump to get to his rifle. Like this is
keeping it in the trunk.
This is on the department if they're not providing him with an adequate way to secure that weapon in his vehicle.
Well, here's my thing.
Yeah,
is his rifle in the rack?
Yes,
because he got out of the passenger seat.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, like when you and I would ride together.
Sure.
The passenger was going to put their rifle in the rack. Because if you're in the passenger seat, you're much more likely to be the one getting to your rifle on the way to a call.
Yeah. And like I said, it's
just common sense.
I would say, like, almost 100% of the time, it doesn't matter. But in this instance,
it does.
It matters a lot.
Well, the fact that he has to unlock this trunk with a key... Also,
there's just a lot of weird stuff that go. Like when I first watched it, there was so many questions I had about like, but why is it this way?
Yes. Well, and is there not already a guy at the top of the stairs with a shotgun or a rifle? Like,
that's what I mean. There was already
just going to be
scene for this. And I will say this, I don't think a lot of shootings going on right now because of how calm everyone is outside.
And you don't hear anything.
Yeah. But man, this is so pause it real quick. This is also why car ready is a thing.
Yeah.
So standard training on this type of stuff and
maybe it wouldn't fit in his rifle bag with the magazine in.
And maybe that's the case. But like typically if I'm gonna have this in a duty ready scenario, there's going to be a magazine in the gun. There won't be one in the chamber for a rifle, but like you at least need to be what you would consider car ready. And that's at least what our training would dictate is that there's at least a magazine in. So the only thing I have to do is pull that charging handle back, let it go home, and then verify that it actually chambered around, and I'm not an idiot. And then you're good to go. I'm not turning knobs on my aim point, nothing. I just go.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly bet by the looks of his bag that he was carrying his rifle in, the magazine plus that optic being mounted on the handle is just too tall to zip it up.
So, and I want to point this out too. So even if you look at, I'm the gun nerd here, so I'll get into this. So this is an A2 configuration this is literally like a 20-inch barrel.
Yeah.
This is a fixed stock that's super long. This charging handle is actually part of the upper receiver. So you cannot remove this charging handle. So this is a Vietnam era, literally.
Yeah.
AR, which means that your height over bore on this optic is like a mile. The higher my height over bore is over my barrel, which means if the business of the barrel is here, that you gotta mention it's here and my optic's way up here, they have to line up. So it's called a zero for the people that aren't familiar with weapons terminology or whatever. So the less that height over bore is, that zero lasts for a longer distance. So if I zero it at 50 yards, I'm still going to be within an inch or so for about 20 or 30 yards. But it's exponentially more the higher that height over bore goes. So now that zeroing point, even if it was perfect, even if it was 15 feet or whatever, which would be stupid for a rifle, but let's say it's the case, right? I have maybe 4 inches where my zero is correct. 4 inches past that, it's like an inch down. 4 inches too close, it's an inch up. And that is the difference in between hitting and missing when you're talking about utilizing a firearm. And so it's 2021, it's about to be 2022, and this is probably 70 years old.
Yeah.
Technology. It's psycho how old.
And you can't tell me that
they don't have the money for that.
They don't have the money. Somebody left a comment about the LAPD budget, and I think it was like 1.9 billion.
Yeah.
And they have a contract with Benelli for tactical shotguns.
Yeah, I don't.
But there's this guy going to this hot of a call with this rifle, like. And why?
And it's not to say you couldn't be dangerous with this thing. Don't get me wrong. No. With a good amount of training, this thing is perfectly adequate for the job that they asked it to do. However, it does create limitations that shouldn't exist given current budgets and current SOPs. The other issue I have with this, and I'll point this out, one of the big reasons why the shooting went sideways was because of overpenetration. And they use the term overpenetration because this is basically when a bullet either hits or doesn't hit its intended target, goes to another barrier, continues to travel through that barrier, and then hits somebody. It's what happened in this case. Logic should explain a 20-inch barrel is going to give you more velocity than a 16-inch, or even better, in my personal opinion. A 10 or 14-inch barrel should give you considerably less velocity and will significantly lower the likelihood that you have a round that overpenetrates a barrier. Quite literally, even if this guy hit the target like he was supposed to, that barrel length by itself could have set him up for failure.
Yeah.
And what I want to point out is, as much as people will complain about defunding the police and having that conversation, this is worse and more egregious than having like a bulb overhead projector in a classroom. This is like this would be the equivalent of trying to still having lead paint lining your milk carton. And I can't even I can't emphasize to you how out of date this is.